All right, everybody. Sorry for the late stream there. I needed a little bit more sleep and going like extra hard on working on some art. And then I also got caught up a little bit on some Expedition 33 because it's amazing. So can't blame you for that one. Anyway, we are going to take a little bit of a break from art today, and we are going to be playing some more Control. Um, I needed like a day or two to kind of just like, kind of get away from art for a little bit. So I figured we'd play some more of this game here. So let me go ahead and I'm going to turn off my music. And please let me know if you have trouble hearing the game or if you have trouble hearing me. I remember I had to do like some funky stuff here with the audio to get it to work. So let me make sure I even have it on right now. All right, we got Control on. And let me get options. Desktop audio, monitoring output. Doesn't look like it's doing much anything, does it? On that. For some reason I had to do that with this one. Let me see if Control itself is on. Yeah, it's on. Just looking at my audio real fast. Audio capture. Oh, Control. Okay, yeah, I do see it on the thing, so. Like I said, if you have trouble just hearing, just please let me know. And I will do my best to fix it. And why is my controller not working? There we go. Alright, let's see. Investigate the training course, maintenance field training. So... gotta remember my controls here, too. Alright, let's see. Which way do I need to go? Central maintenance. Ventilation, control room. Need to go. Whoa! Whoops. Whoops. I've also been playing Palia lately, where of course you can like glide when you jump off of things, and Expedition 33 it won't let you jump off of things if it's an area you're not supposed to jump off of, so that's my code. Okay. Let's not fall to our deaths here. That would help, right? Alright, let's try going this way. Okay, I'm going here. And I think I already did this one. Power cut, replace the parts. So I can't get in there. Aha. Get off the screen so I can eat this. my yeet. Alright, got that one. See, somebody was shooting at me from above somewhere here. Oh, yeah. The yeet pretty much never gets old. Eat it. Give me something tasty. Ooh, shatter projectile choke. I don't know what that is. Find out. Let's see. Choke. Projectile spread. Slows down the projectiles. Exclusive to... Interesting. Accuracy boost. Recoil. Projectiles fired +3. Consecutive kills. Let's see, I've got recoil on right now. Let's try this. Hopefully the recoil's not too crazy. Oh, what the fuck? I don't have anything to throw at me, do I? Yep, I do. I lied. The recoil's not too bad. I mean, I gotta be pretty close to it anyway, so... Get battery. Let's put that on there. Super dead. So I gotta get some more battery. And is there any more in here? I gotta do. I feel like there probably is more. Go in there. There's a way to get in there. Just gotta figure it out. Oops. Well, thought I could just set it down, but I guess I can't. Okay. Hey, how's it going, Three Frogs? I hope you had a nice recovery from your super long trip. Aha, another battery spot. Okay. Nice. Well, I hope you had a good day. All right. Did that. Got all the batteries. I am at the point where I'm supposed to be basically fixing things so the place doesn't like melt down. So, I don't know. I just booted it back up, so I haven't really done a terrible huge amount of things yet. So let's see, missions, collectibles, research and records. All right, home safe tests. Utilization of paranatural elements munitions testing on OOP-22, aka home safe. The safe object of power can produce a barrier using objects or material from its immediate vicinity. See OOP-22 case file for more details. Bureau Rangers were given permission to employ heavy weaponry against a para-utilitarian bound to this object in order to gauge the barrier's durability. Blank and blank velocity ammunition were tested with blank results. Testing will continue after blank. The safe object of power is clearly a viable candidate for use in combat response scenarios, allowing para-utilitarians to participate in altered engagements would be an advantage worth considering. Refer to file 8-53-8367 for full report. Cool, so I'm about to get like a really cool like barrier ability here. That'll be fun. Upcoming game reminder. Next game is Wednesday at 8. Usual spot. Hazard owes me $20. Irish still on a fucking winning streak. Someone please figure out how he's cheating. Thompson suspended for a game because of that shady dealing incident. Guy, I owe you $60. I brought beers last time, so it's Hepstenstall's turn. Remus. Oh, okay. So I need to get in here. So let's have to go down here first. Rock quarry, power plant. Let's go to the rock quarry first. Three Fox, if please let me know if you have trouble like hearing any of the game noises, or if like, I get to like a speaking part and you can't hear, because I have no idea. I remember I had to do something funky with the audio to get it to work last time, and then I had to turn it off for other streams because that was like muting my VODs, which was like really annoying. So I want everybody to be able to enjoy it. Okay, so can't do anything at the rock quarry. At least not yet. I appreciate it, man. Let's go down then. Let's go to... Let's not get squished by the elevator door here. Man, this lighting is not doing the main character any favors. Let's go ahead and turn this way. Okay, so that's where I was, so let's let's go down here. Oh my god. I I haven't seen it. I've only seen the I've seen like the memes and stuff. Alright, so I'm back here, so... Must have to go... I think I've already been in here. Yeah, I've been in here. Let me go ahead and go to this real quick. Ooh, abilities. I haven't seen the new one. I've seen the old one, like the original. Hey, Pensy, how's it going? Okay, so I need more points to upgrade the Yeet. So we're not going to do that right now. Astral constructs, mods, weapon forms. Yeah, the old one's great. Ooh, spin looks pretty cool. Oh, spin is like a burst fire. That's cool. All right. Hell yeah. Well, shit, I definitely need to get that. Spin sounds awesome. It's okay, Pensy. Hopefully you didn't get hurt again this time. Makes me sad every time you get hurt. Central maintenance. Field training. I haven't been this way, have I? Got some sort of quest for this, so... Thanks. Still working on it, I just needed to take a break. I appreciate you going back and watching the VODs. I actually need to put it up again on... I need to put it up on YouTube. No, that makes me sad, Pensy. Field training after complaint. I'd like to file a formal complaint. Read the unauthorized use of my voice in a state of quality that I did not agree on. The fact that they were planning to use material from what I thought was a rehearsal was not communicated to me at all. Had it been, I would have disallowed the use of those recordings. I want use of the Ranger Field Training course recorded messages to halt immediately. I will not stand for this humiliation among my peers. I will go to HR with this if necessary. Signed, Randall Pulaski. Well, Pensy, when I am inevitably rich and famous, we will get you all patched up. We will throw money at it until you feel better, like forever. So
I just read this. Welcome to the Ranger Field Training course. The course must be completed in the specified amount of time. When you're ready to start, press the button. Is that all, or? Get ready, Ranger. Course starting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go.
Oh shit, this way. Oh, let's see.
5 seconds remaining. 30 seconds remaining.
Shit. The bell. No. No. No.
15 seconds remaining.
No, I fell again.
Seconds remaining.
Alright, at least I know what I'm doing this time. Alright, let's see what I was supposed to do next. I'm supposed to shoot these 3. And then Put some batteries in. And then I guess I run and then I jump up on these. And this gets in my way. And then I guess this is the exit. This is the end. Ah, and then I go out here. Okay, okay. So yeah. Alright, let's make sure I got my long range weapon here. Switch. Switch to the long range. I always forget how to do this. There we go. Alright.
Get ready, Ranger. Course starting in 5, 4,
The audio is pretty damn funny though.
1.
For him to like complaining about. Pick it up. I don't think I'm gonna make it. What the fuck? Fuck these controls. Yeah, I'm not gonna make it. I'm gonna have to do it again. What the fuck? Run. Run, bitch.
Course failed. Try again.
The worst part about it is I'm sure I need to complete this to get something nice, so... Yeah, the controls are wonky. Like, I really, really hate running by pushing in the thumbstick. Like, it's terrible. I wonder if I can change my controls. Press the button, hold to bind. I can change it, but I don't know what I can change it to. Let's try left button. So that would normally be my shield when I get it. So no, stop. Yeah, there's a mouse and keyboard option, but I don't know. The super rare hug. Yeah, no, it's the most like rare thing ever. Alright, we're gonna try. Let's see if this is better.
Get ready, Ranger. Course starting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go.
Picked up. Oh my god. Run! Wow. I was right there. Man. Alright, maybe I should try this with mouse and keyboard. Alright. What is run? That. And then I gotta see what my... aim launch is this. Seize weapon. Switch weapon. Launch is E. Alright, well, let's try this with mouse and keyboard, see how it goes.
Get ready, Ranger. Course starting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go.
What is grab? E. Okay. And then launches. What? Okay. E. And then
30 seconds remaining.
what do I launch it with? E and what the fuck? I don't know what I'm supposed to throw this with.
15 seconds remaining.
Just hitting buttons here. Okay. It says launch. Launch is also E. Is it middle button click to throw it? It is. Wow, that's weird. Alright. So that and that. Alright, at least I know the controls for. I feel like my energy there is also like screwing me. No, that one. I'm determined. I'm gonna beat this course, damn it. There. So, now that I know the damn buttons.
Get ready, Ranger. Course starting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go.
Run. Really?
Five seconds remaining. Failed.
What?
Try again, Ranger.
Oh wait, I have to go in here for something? Oh my god. Alright, I almost had it. That's so annoying.
Get ready, Ranger. Course starting in 5, 4, 3,
Shit. I hate anything timed. It's so stressful. I'm not gonna make it.
5 seconds remaining.
Run. Motherfucker.
Get ready, Ranger. Course starting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go. 30 seconds remaining.
No, don't you fall. No. Pick it up. Shit.
5 seconds remaining. Course failed. Try again, Ranger.
Oh my fucking god.
Get ready, Ranger. Course starting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go. 60 seconds remaining.
No. Put it down. Are you fucking kidding me? Why? Why would you put it there?
15 seconds.
You fucking... Oh my god. So annoying. Okay, so there's different batteries I can pick up. I don't have to pick up that one.
Try again, Ranger.
Yeah, it's super annoying. Well, it doesn't help that, like, my mouse is really touchy. I don't know. I mean, I'm probably just coping here, but man. Alright. We're gonna do this, damn
Get
it.
ready, Ranger. Course starting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go. 45 seconds remaining.
Fun. Alright, well I did it. Now I just gotta get up there. I gotta clear all the shit off around it. There we go. There. I'm gonna use my controller again. Shield yourself. Pass this. So this is shield. That's helpful though. That's pretty cool. Why did you stop the shield? It sucks with the shield as I can't really see in front of me. Shit, my energy's about to run out. Oh, that's not good. You know, I could probably switch the controls back now that now that I'm not doing that puzzle. So let's do that. Sprint will now be. We'll put it back to what it was, and then we'll put this back to what it's supposed to be. Oops, wrong thing. Shit. Is there a thing to... Okay, reset to defaults. This is back to Ron. Honestly, they're not really shooting at me right now. Oh, yeah. Nice. Well, now I have a shield. That's cool. Oh my god. Of course they want me to use it right away here. Oh, I need health. God damn. Did you drop health, my dude? You didn't? Oh, man. I don't know. Plastic tree procedures. Alright, home home safe OOP22KE containment procedure. No unique procedures required. Descriptions, para-utility. The object is a guardhouse brand home safe. Weight measurements vary. When bound, the object allows para-utilitarians to telekinetically gather items and debris from the surroundings. The object is currently bound by blank. Background: discovered in the basement of a home in Blank, Ohio. The object gained rapid interest in certain online forums dedicated to opening abandoned safes. After months of failure, the owner attempted to open it with explosives. The object survived with no physical damage. Bureau agents were dispatched, now confident of its paranatural nature. Blood occasionally emerges from the seam around the object's door. Tests confirm the blood is not human. X-rays taken of the object indicate that something is trapped inside, though the images are always blurred, which indicates the contents of the object are moving. All attempts to open the object have been unsuccessful. Oh, that's cool. Oh, by the way, they came and fixed our AC today. Woohoo! I am super excited. Yeah, it probably, if I had to guess, it has like some sort of like extra dimensional being in it. Yeah, I know, I was fucking dying before, and on top of that I was getting like absolutely like destroyed by like pollen from having the windows open. I'm really glad they came and fixed it, because it's only gonna get like hotter like as time goes. So as we get closer to summer here, it's gonna get like insane hot. So all right, cool. So now I need to fix the coolant pumps. I remember I had some sort of quest for burning trash too, so I don't know. Alright, let's see, where am I now? So that's the elevator. Black Rock Processing. Have I been in here? Somebody's shooting at me. Okay. Oh, you son of a bitch. Wow. I didn't even see them. Where the hell did they come from? Alright. Note to self, there are enemies that will just spawn fucking next to you. That's so shitty. Wait a minute. Don't tell me I have to do that course again. I'm gonna be so mad. No, I don't. Okay. I was about to be so fucking mad. We're good. Alright, so... Ooh. I can upgrade the shield, too. Shield strength, shield strength. When released, the shield propels debris at nearby enemies. Ooh. Rush. Evade to rush at enemies and knock them back. Shield rush, and then energy will recover while shield is active. Ooh. Okay. Alright, well, thanks for showing up for a little bit, Three Frogs. I appreciate it. I hope you get your chores done nice and quick, and then you can just hang out and have a nice, relaxing day. Oh, I need more belly buttons. Can I do this one? Yep. Alright. Hell yeah. Still don't have resistance to this poison yet, so we're not gonna fuck with that. This way is to the elevator. I think. Oh wait, did I have to? I don't know if I need to be in here again. I can't remember if the elevator's up there or not, though. Run. This motherfucker with a rocket launcher gotta go. Where is he? Well, maybe I shouldn't walk up like this. I need to eat some stuff. Really? Are you kidding me? Oh my god. I'm a terrible psychic. I'm so bad at this. I mean, I'm the best ever. I don't know who said I was just bad just now, but it wasn't me. Okay. I don't even know if I need to go that way. I can't remember which way was that elevator. Yeah, there's an elevator, I think. Yeah, the elevator's this way. Or, wait, is it back out this way? Right, where do I need to go now? I need to go down there. Alright, maybe... a central maintenance. Coolant. I think I gotta go over here and do something. It's probably gonna be dudes. Yeah, there's dudes. Oh, there's the... oh, they explode. Ah. Hey, no, you're not gonna blow up on me. Asshole. Oh, I can't go through there, so... oh, God. Jesus Christ. That's so rude. On top of everything, now I've got, like, suicide bombers. Or sewer slide bombers, I should say. Jesus. This fucking game. Alright. There's a battery in that. slide. Ah, this furnace chamber. Really? Mr. Yeet. It's Year of the Yeet. 2026 is Year of the Yeet. Man, I really just wish that I could use my freaking model while playing this game. That would be awesome. Alright, so I remember that I needed to throw trash away or something. So let me go to my missions here. Burn the trash. Burn the trash around the furnace. That's the furnace chamber. So... the hell? Okay. Oh, picking up the floor. Oh, so he wants me to burn these. Mr. Yeet, in theaters Friday. Rated Y for Yeet. Something like
My name is Dr. Pierce, lead researcher of the Parakinesis.
Can you hear the voices, like all the everything in the game? I had to do something funky with the audio last time, so. Oh. A little quiet. Okay. Let's see. Let's do that up. See if this makes a difference. Alright, hopefully that helps. I turned the desktop audio up because I think that's what I had to do last time in order to get the how do I get down into these things? Ooh, item. Let's see. Oh, there's a frickin' there's a staircase right here. I could have been using that. That's all the ones down here. Am I missing any? Yeah. Oh man, did it not count the other ones that I threw in? Oh man. Shit. Shit. How do I... Do I have to reset, or what? I already threw the other ones, they just disappeared. Oh, wait. Oh, okay. They didn't disappear, they're right. Okay. Cool. Okay, more. Boo ads, boo hiss. You know what? Just check something real quick. Insert your security key in the USB port. What the hell does that mean? Spendable balance. Well, I was trying to check something out for you there, Pensy, and I couldn't get it to work, so I'll worry about that later. Sorry. Alright, let's see. So, was that all the trash? I feel like I'm missing... Oh, aha, there's something here. Alright, got that one. Oh, there's a door up there. Wonder how I get to that. Hmm. Any more of them? I feel like I definitely should have some more to throw up there. I think I need one more. I don't know how to get up that way. So it looks like... There's a room up there. Hmm. I don't see any more that I threw. Although I feel like I threw quite a few of them up there. Might just be blind, though. That's a very real possibility. Since Aniki is an old, he also has old eyes, so, you know, that does not help. Where's... wonder if I get, like, some sort of levitate ability at some point. Otherwise, I don't know where the hell this last one is to throw in here. Where'd it go? What did I do with it? Shit. I wonder if there's a way to, like, reset the route. So I feel like he'll give me something nice for completing this. Or maybe it's... is it hidden? Where are you? Final one to throw in. I don't see it. I don't think... no, there's no way to jump up there. Fuck. Back! Try looking really thoroughly. I think there's barrels down here, but they're not the green hazardous waste ones. I think I got all those from down here. What am I missing? Man, I really want to complete this quest. I hate leaving like quests like undone. Like it's annoying to me. It bothers me. Like I'm trying to see if maybe it's hidden somewhere. Like maybe behind some stuff. Some of these boxes. Oh! Alright. That could have been bad. Just need one more. Where the fuck is it? Maybe, is it up here somewhere? Ooh, there's a box though. I mean, I found a secret, but that's not what I need. I wonder if one of them's out here somewhere. Saw it in the big fans. Yeah, I got one from out of there. There was one that was like up there. See, there's like a room across. See, there's that right there, but I don't know how to get to that. And then there's a room behind the big fan over there, too. Like, I feel like I threw, like, a good amount of them, but I don't know if all the ones that I threw, like, had appeared up here at all. Wait. There it is. I found it. Ooh, it gave me 2 ability points. Hell yeah. I was just worried that I couldn't get that close to the furnace. You know, for reasons. Alright, let's see. Need 3 points for that. Okay, moving on. Oh. Let's get these cooling pipes. Really? Where? Where's that shot come from? Behind me somewhere? Where did you come from? Oh. Bitch ass. I know, it's like they just, I mean, I guess I shouldn't be surprised that there's like why, dude? Where's the other battery spot? Shit, I hear the other ones. Where the fuck did I put this battery? Well, use it for something. I see you up there. Ooh. I guess I should take care of these guys first. Vegeta, you need to relax, dude. I'm trying to stream here, man. Alright, let's take care of these assholes first. I'll get on my nerves. Where are they even shooting at me from? Where are these enemies? I mean, I'm glad that they can't, like, shoot for shit, but okay. Oh, damn. Well, there's still a barrier up. Alright, I need to find where I need to put this other battery. It's probably way over here somewhere. There we go. Something's blocking the pipes. I love how Ati just kind of like speaks like nonsense. Oh. Oh, ow, 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 ow. Really? It's pretty fucking gross. I agree. Get out of here. Nasty ass bitch. Oh, there's more. Ew. It's really gross. What? That can still hit me? Even through my barrier? What the hell? Ew. That's so nasty. Shooting it, why isn't it? Apparently it doesn't protect from poo. Yeah, you're right. Poo is the ultimate weapon, apparently. The ultimate anti-psychic ability is poo shot. That's so gross. Did I get it? Ew. That's just nasty. Shield efficiency. Let me jump over here. Can't. Alright, what do I have to do now? Alright, that's one of them. There's some... I guess there's another spot I need to... I guess I gotta follow the pipes. Wish I could go a little bit faster while I was holding this. Okay, got that. So, maybe up here. Your allergies are being dumpy thick. It'd be like that sometimes. There we go. Alright, now I'm gonna lift the line. And of course there's dudes again. Because why not? Where you come from? Bitch. Bitch ass. Ah! Oh! That was close. Where do all those dudes go? Are they right below me? Got him. Guess I gotta kill all of these dudes so I can leave. Jesus Christ. Fine. Assholes. I still can't leave. Oh shit. Oh my god. What the fuck? Run. Wow. God damn, that wasn't... Are you kidding me? No headaches for Fancy. I know, like... I don't know, it's just this game just, like... surprises me, like, out of nowhere. Like, I just minded my own business, and that guy, like, came up out of the elevator. Like, what the fuck, man? Okay, so... Alright, so imagine I have to kill that dude to go down that elevator. At least I know he's here this time. You gonna come up? There he is. Oh God! Run away! Run away! Hell yeah. Meleeed him to death. Motherfucker. Still don't really understand why my computer can't run this at higher graphics. This game is pretty old. Oh my god, yeah, of course there's like a million fucking guys out here. Oh, I got some people helping me, that's nice. Are you kidding me? You fucking asshole.
Find an opening.
Right, so now where am I supposed to go? Control room. Oops. Supposed to go this way. Showroom is this way. Elevator. So I'll take the elevator. There we go. Yeah, her first day at boss is not. She's not gonna get a #1 boss mug from her employees. There's definitely. Yep, that's what I thought. Where'd you come from? Bitch ass bitch. Yeah, I would too. Especially if my boss was like a psychic with telekinetic powers. Yeah, I definitely, my nose would be brown, for sure. It'd be very brown. Ah, that's cool. I mean, this facility's got to be fucking huge. I think I want to go talk to Ati again here real quick. Yeah, Leon's first day in Resident Evil 2, yep. There's still this poison. I wonder when I'm going to be able to dispel that or deal with that. Cool, okay, there was no reason to go back there. Fun times. Thought maybe I could have like a fun little dialogue with him or something. Now I gotta get back to a thing I can fast travel. Awesome. There we go, I could just fast travel from here. Oh my god, I got a spot on my back. I can't reach. Itch. Oh man. The downsides of getting a little bit more muscle is making it harder to scratch my back.
Live specimen.
Cafeteria. Where's the boardroom? Should be up here, right? Yeah.
Jesse, you made it. And you lifted the
Listen, Emily. I haven't been completely honest. I have a younger brother, Dylan. When we were kids, we found an old slide projector in Ordinary's landfill. The slides created doorways to other places. Bad things happened.
They're very low. Hmm. Um, 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 I don't know why the desktop audio is all the way up. That's maybe. All right. Let's see if this makes a difference.
inside.
But we found help. Through one of the doorways,
Vegeta.
we met something. A being.
A being. What kind of being?
It's hard to describe, but it
Oh, that fixed it? Nice.
Does.
we managed to turn the projector off. The bad things that came through the doorways were gone. After that, your people came. Tried to grab us. I ran away. They got Dylan.
I left him behind.
Oh, the
Bureau
graphics suddenly
agents took
fixed
your
themselves a
brother?
little bit too.
Yes.
That's weird.
You covered it up. No one believed me. I just want to find Dylan. I've been looking for him ever since.
What happened to the slide projector? It sounds like another object of power.
I thought you took it. The Bureau. Along with Dylan.
Yeah, really.
I've never heard of it. But around here, assume everything's classified. You know, I looked into the ordinary AWE case files after you mentioned it. Trench and Darling were both involved. A large area of the containment sector was reserved for it. The case hasn't been active for a long time. I have no idea if anything's still there. Can you tell me more about this being you found?
Let's hope you two get along.
She's been with me ever since Ordinary. In my head. She led me to you. I call her Polaris.
As in a guiding star. Did Polaris know about the hiss? If she got you in here in spite of the lockdown, she's very powerful. Which may help explain your test results. Your readings are incredible, Jesse. Now, cross-referencing them with the database, I found 2 matches in Darling's old classified files. Unfortunately, I can't access them beyond the file codes, but one was P6, referring to a prime candidate for a potential future bureau director. This was logged years ago.
Hey, what's up, Sarah?
Is that Dylan?
The other match is on something called Hedron, which must be connected to these Hedron resonance amplifiers somehow. All I know is that Marshall went to the research sector to secure the HRA production after the hiss first attacked.
So, Marshall seems like our best lead on Dylan.
I need to go after her. How can I get to the research sector?
Use my keycard. The sector elevator will take you there.
Marshall is the next step.
Oh.
What Emily told me about Ordinary, my powers being connected to things in the Bureau's past. I am so close to something. Do you feel it? Something's coming.
We take turns to come for a visit. I helped you. You owe me now. And when time comes, I will come calling.
I definitely feel like Ati is not human. He is like super sus. Hold G to activate. Let's see. Assets, missions, collectibles. Alright, we got some more stuff here. Hiss charge. The hiss charged agents are examples of extreme physical deformation resulting from hiss corruption. Hiss charged display an unthinkable fixation on any non-corrupted individuals in the area. Once within a specific proximity, they erupt into a burst of focused hiss resonance, so dense that it acts as a physical force. The hiss charge is depleted of the hiss corruption after this eruption. The host is left lifeless. This behavior may be an adaptive response to the HRAs. The hiss charge are designed to blow the devices off potential hosts, exposing them to the resonance. Is the hiss capable of customizing a corrupted host's altered ability to this degree? Why is the physiology of the hiss charge so dramatically different from the host's original form? Lots of questions, no answer. Refer to blank file for full report. Hiss Trooper. Troopers are meant to be the first agents to enter unknown AWEs, thresholds, or any other paranaturally hazardous situation. They are heavily armored and heavily armed in preparation for the worst. As a result of their role, his troopers have access to the heaviest armor and weaponry from the Bureau's armory, including military-grade chain guns and grenade launchers. In addition to their already formidable FBC-issued armor, the hiss resonance surrounding these entities is dense enough to stop bullets. If forced to engage one of these, be sure to make use of any available cover. Also note that to the telekinetically talented, enemy grenades can be a welcome source of ammunition. Refer to blank file for the report. Let's see, we got some case files, plastic tree procedures. Holiday Memories Tree, AI14-AE. Containment procedure. Item must be contained within a soundproof cell. Description/altered effect. A Holiday Memories brand white plastic tree with green plastic stand. The item repeats words and phrases spoken within range of blank feet, always in a tone below blank hertz. This verbal mimicry has profoundly distressing effects on the individual it's copying. Background. The item was taken from the Blank, a Canadian research station established on Ross Island in Antarctica, where it was used to celebrate the holiday season. In 1979, solar radiation damaged the radio, severing the base's only means of communication with the world. After the frozen passages opened, a military expedition visited the base to reestablish contact. They found the base's occupants in various states of madness, rambling about voices in the tree. Military personnel discovered they also heard the tree speaking. After locking the item in a supply crate, they brought it back to the mainland, at which point the Bureau intervened. Ah, gotcha. Correspondence. Mail tube complaint. Hey, Bozer, get this. The accounting department still says they haven't received my expense reports. They say the receipts probably got lost in the mail tubes because of a shift or a threshold of some fuckery, and that if I don't have the originals, they can't verify my expenses for reimbursement. This is such bullshit. Why do we even use these fucking tubes if they just spit our mail out in some other goddamn dimension? Just venting here before I make a formal complaint. Useless pieces of shit. That's a pretty good point. That makes sense. Transmission speakers to corrupt chaos. Astroplane is a conflict switchboard. This will come for us all. You must stop/shut them up. Alright. Unread. Got another one. Eternal lockdown.
So much is expected from the director. The responsibility, the privilege to steer the Bureau into dangerous waters and safely out again. To inspire and lead its people, to protect them. The board is there to advise you, but they want things in return. You
I do like the
hold this
FMVs.
gold, trembling hands. I had to lose everything before I could see the Bureau is the director's life. There's no room for anything else. If the forces contained here escaped, we'd be dragged back into an age of superstition, terror, death. Assuming you think we ever really left that behind. Any emergency, any major containment breach, and the lockdown goes into effect. I implemented this security measure in my first years as director. I knew we were vulnerable. I'd personally seen the cost of sloppiness. I made sure the internal lockdown could only be lifted by a directorial override, only to be used when the director is confident the sectors are safe to be opened again. This way, the director is the last line of defense. And if I screw up, it's on me. and me alone.
Says I have 2 unread. I don't know which ones. Which one do you want to? Maybe that's the other one. That's okay. We'll come back to that. Furnace research, astroplane, missing mom. Oh, okay. Those are the episodes. Alright, so kind of thinking this is probably a good point to call it. I know you just got here, Syrup, but we gotta get some food and stuff. Havoc is going to be streaming later, so I want to give her a chance to be able to do her stream as well. Ooh, I have additional onslaught. Hell yeah. Nice. Alright, got that. And I should have saved the game for me, right, I think? Alright, let me throw you guys in the lobby here so we can do a wrap-up. I want to thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today while I played some more Control. It was nice to get a little bit of a break from some artwork. I had been like going like crazy on it. I will be back again tomorrow, hopefully at the normal time. I'm going to be playing this again, and then Friday we will work some more on the visual novel. So I will not be streaming Thursday. That's also going to be a break day for me. If you like the kind of content I do, please follow me to see when I go live. Consider subscribing. It's super easy, especially if you have that Amazon Prime button. You can just go ahead and click that. That would help me out tremendously. I do have VGen commissions open under Art Aniki VT. Also a Patreon if you want to check that out. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a wonderful day until I catch